Hey everyone, welcome. So if you're watching this, I'm going to take a guess that you've just finished a staking cycle with PLAZM. You looked at the numbers to restake, and you probably thought, wait a minute, that can't be right. You might be feeling a bit confused, maybe even a little frustrated. Don't worry, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to clear all of this up.
But first, you know the drill. This is just for educational purposes. It is not financial advice. Crypto's a risky game, so please always do your own research. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get into it.
Here's our game plan. First, we're going to talk about the entry ticket you need to restake. Then we'll dive right into why it feels so painful right now by looking at something called the price gap. After that, we get to the good news, how that gap closes and how your own math that's way better. We'll wrap up with what you can do today and the simple path forward. I promise by the end of this, you'll go from feeling frustrated to feeling confident.
All right, so let's kick things off with the absolute basics. To restake your PLAZM tokens, you have to make what the system calls a contribution.
Honestly, the best way to think about this is like an entry ticket to a theme park. It's just the price of admission to get back on all the cool rides. And here's the really important part. It's not a fee that just disappears into thin air. This contribution goes directly into the system's treasury, where it helps generate more yield for everybody. It's the fuel that keeps the whole engine running.
So what's the recipe for this entry ticket? Well, it's actually pretty simple. The protocol basically says the contribution is about 2% of your PLAZM's value, and you pay for it in a different token called eShare. So if you have 1,000 PLAZM, you'd need about 20 eShare, and if eShare is trading at, say, $12, that's an entry ticket of about $240. So far, so good, right? Simple math.
Okay, now we get to the real heart of the issue. If the math is that simple, why does it feel so painful to do this right now? This is where that frustration kicks in. And believe me, that feeling is 100% valid.
And this isn't just theory. Let's look at a real-life example from someone in the community. They finished their cycle with an awesome 5,600 PLAZM tokens. But when it came time to restake, the system had to sell a whopping 4,000 of those tokens just to get the last 1,600 back into the system. I mean, that feels terrible. You earn this huge pile of tokens, and it feels like most of it just vanishes to get back in the game.
So the million-dollar question is, why? Why does this happen? The answer comes down to one single concept that explains everything: the price gap.
In this right here, this is the whole problem in one picture. You see, there are two different prices for PLAZM right now. On the left, you have what's called the create price. Think of this as the high official price that the system uses to figure out your entry ticket cost. But on the right, you have the market price. This is the lower price that people are actually buying and selling PLAZM for out in the real world. So you're being asked to pay a bill that's calculated using that high price, but you have to pay it by selling tokens at the low price. That gap, that's the source of all the pain.
Let's use an analogy to make this crystal clear. Imagine you're at an arcade. The official arcade booth sells its game tokens for $10 a piece, but right outside there's a guy selling the exact same tokens for just $2. Now, the game you want to play costs $10 to start. If you buy from the official booth, you just need one token. But if you have to use the tokens from the guy outside, you'd have to sell 5 of his tokens to equal that same $10 value. That's exactly what's happening here. The protocol is the official arcade, and the market is the guy outside.
Okay, so that's the problem. And yeah, it's a real bummer. But here comes the good news. The entire system is designed to fix this problem all by itself. Let's break down how that actually works.
There are two really powerful automatic forces that are always working to close that price gap. The first is something called BBB. You can just think of it as a little robot whose only job 24/7 is to go out to the market and buy up PLAZM tokens. This creates constant buying pressure, which naturally helps push that low market price up. At the very same time, the amount of new PLAZM being created and sold is slowing down.
In fact, we just passed a huge milestone called Day 92. Before that day, lots of new tokens were being released every day. But after Day 92, that number just falls off a cliff. So think about it. You've got less selling from new tokens, and at the same time, you've got constant buying from that little BBB robot. What happens when demand is higher than supply? The price goes up, and that painful gap starts to shrink.
So, what does all this mean for you personally? It means that with every single cycle that passes, your restaking math gets better and better and better. Let's see what that actually looks like. This is where you can really see the light at the end of the tunnel. In cycle 1, where we are right now, it's painful. You might only get to keep around 29% of the tokens you earned. But as that gap closes, just look at what happens. In your next cycle, cycle 2,
That could completely flip. You might keep 71% and only have to sell 29%. And by cycle 3, when that gap is nearly gone, you could be keeping 90% or even more of your tokens. The pain of this first cycle is temporary. The system is literally built to reward the people who stick with it.
Okay, this is all great for the future, but what can you do right now while you're stuck in this painful first cycle? Well, you actually have a few really practical options.
First, you can pay that entry ticket with another crypto like ETH instead of selling your PLAZM. That lets you keep 100% of your earned tokens working for you. Second, you can just wait. You don't have to restake this very second. You can hold your tokens and let that gap close a bit more. Third, you can bite the bullet and accept the short-term pain, knowing that the compounding and the improving math will really pay off down the road. And finally, you could add to your position, which makes that contribution feel like a much smaller piece of your overall pie.
All right, let's bring this all home and boil it down to one simple, clear takeaway.
The reason it's so tough to restake right now is all because of that gap between the high protocol price and the low market price. That's it. But the most important thing to remember is that those automatic built-in forces are working every single day to pull that gap closed.
And this is the end goal. This is where we're all headed. Convergence. The market price is constantly being pushed up to meet that create price. And as these two lines get closer and closer together, the pain of restaking just melts away, until eventually it becomes a simple, small, and totally painless percentage.
So what's the one thing you should take away from all this? It's that the early cycles are without a doubt the hardest part. But this protocol is specifically designed to reward patience. The math literally gets better in your favor with every single cycle you complete.
And one last time, our full disclaimer. This was for educational purposes only, not financial advice. All crypto investments carry a lot of risk. The mechanics we talked about today could always change, and what happened in the past doesn't guarantee future results. Please always do your own research and never invest more than you're willing to lose. Thanks so much for watching.